Hello everyone, welcome to 10-Minute Physiology. In today's video, I'm going to give you a short introduction to the autonomic nervous system. So with that, let's give it a go. So I would like to start off with the general anatomy of the autonomic nervous system. So in the autonomic nervous system, we have neurons in the central nervous system. So the central nervous system is going to consist of the brain and spinal cord. And these neurons are going to be the preganglionic neurons. So the preganglionic neurons are going to be in the central nervous system, and they are going to project into the peripheral nervous system, and they will synapse with postganglionic neurons. So the interaction between the postganglionic neuron and the preganglionic neuron is something called the peripheral ganglion. So the peripheral ganglion is where you have these two neurons interacting with each other and synapsing with each other. So the postganglionic neuron is then going to project onto a target cell, which will then produce a response. So what we see here is that the autonomic nervous system is going to consist of these two neuron chains. So you have the preganglionic neuron in the central nervous system, which then projects into the peripheral nervous system to a postganglionic neuron. So you have this two neuron chain here. So now if we were to look at the autonomic nervous system, we're going to now look at a cross-section of the spinal cord. And what we see here is that there's two main regions that we have to worry about here. The first is the lateral horn, and the second is the ventral horn. So the first thing that we see is our preganglionic neuron. So the preganglionic neuron, the cell body, is going to be found in the lateral horn of the spinal cord. The preganglionic neuron will then shoot its axon through the ventral horn into the peripheral nervous system. So the preganglionic neuron is going to synapse with the postganglionic neuron, and this will produce the autonomic ganglion, or where you have the two interacting with each other. So what we see here once again is that the autonomic nervous system is going to be characterized by this two neuron chain. So now what we're going to do is we're going to give a really brief overview of the two branches of the autonomic nervous system. So there are two branches of the autonomic nervous system. The first is the sympathetic nervous system. So the sympathetic nervous system is the fight or flight system. And you can remember this with this mnemonic here. So sympathetic is equal to stressed. So the sympathetic nervous system is the fight or flight system. The parasympathetic nervous system is the rest and digest system. So you can remember it by parasympathetic and peace being together. So now what we're going to do is we're going to look and see how the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system vary in different ways, specifically in their anatomy. So if you were to look at the sympathetic nervous system, the main areas where you're going to find the cell bodies of the preganglionic neuron is going to be in the thoracolumbar region of the spinal cord. So this is where you're going to find the preganglionic cell bodies of these neurons. And in the parasympathetic nervous system, the cell bodies of the postganglionic neurons are going to be mainly found in two areas. The first is going to be in the cranial region, and the second is going to be in the sacral. So the craniosacral regions are where you're going to find the cell bodies of the preganglionic neurons for the parasympathetic division. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is where we find the ganglions. So where are we going to find these synapse regions between the pre and post synaptic neurons? So for the sympathetic nervous system, we're going to be finding these ganglions in three places. The first place is going to be in the paravertebral chain. The second place is going to be in the prevertebral chain. And then the third place is going to be in the adrenal medulla. So these are the three main places in which you're going to find the pre and post synaptic neurons interacting with each other in the ganglions. So we can find ganglions in basically three different places. Now for the parasympathetic division, you can see that we also have ganglions present, and they are usually very close to the target organs. So in general, the sympathetic nervous system is going to have short presynaptic neurons and long postsynaptic neurons. So the synapse regions, or the ganglions, are going to be far from the target organs. But the parasympathetic division, what we're going to see here is that the ganglions tend to be very close to their target organs. And this means that their preganglionic neurons tend to be very long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a summary of the anatomy of the autonomic nervous system. So the similarities between both the PSNS and the SNS are the following. So first of all, both consist of the two neuron chain, and both have a preganglionic cell body in the CNS and a postganglionic body in the peripheral nervous system. But another thing that we also see is that the preganglionic axons tend to be myelinated in both the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system, and the postganglionic axons tend to be unmyelinated. And organs will tend to get input from both the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. So what are some of the differences? So the parasympathetic nervous system, what we see is that the preganglionic neurons tend to be very long. And this is because the postganglionic neurons are far away from the CNS, usually near the target organs. And what we also see is that the parasympathetic preganglionic cell bodies are in the cranial sacral region. Now, the sympathetic nervous system, what we tend to see is that the preganglionic neurons tend to be shorter. And this is because the postganglionic neurons are closer to the CNS or farther from the target organs. And what we also see is that the sympathetic nervous system preganglionic cell bodies are housed in the thoracolumbar region. So I hope this video helped you have a general understanding of the sympathetic and parasympathetic and autonomic nervous system. But over the next few videos, we're going to start really looking at in detail at the autonomic nervous system. So what we're going to be looking at in future videos is we're going to see the neural pathways in the autonomic nervous system. We're also going to look at the neurochemistry of synaptic transmission, ganglionic transmission in the autonomic nervous system, as well as the physiological effects of the autonomic nervous system on target organs. So I thank you for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one.